You have been programmed to act as a biological shock absorber for other people's trauma. Society labels your inability to stop feeling as virtue. In reality, it is a systemic leak. Your limitless empathy is the specific vulnerability that narcissists and institutions exploit to extract labor and compliance from you until you collapse. The protocol we are about to initialize is derived from the psychological conditioning manuals used by elite trauma surgeons and crisis negotiators. These are the few who must slice through human suffering without flinching. This data is rarely taught to civilians, because a population that can mechanically shut off its guilt is a population that cannot be controlled. When you execute this shift, the result is physiological. You do not numb the pain, you sever the connection. The screaming in the room continues, but the panic in your nervous system stops. You watch people rage, cry, and beg, and your pulse remains flat. You see them as data points to be managed, not burdens to be carried. But be warned, this procedure is permanent. You will survive the chaos that destroys others, but you will lose the ability to bleed for them. You will be safe, but you will be cold. We are about to make the first cut. Chapter 1. Why feeling less can save you more. A surgeon cuts people open for a living. Blood, torn tissue, the sound of bone being sawed. If the surgeon felt every slice as if it were happening to their own body, the hands would shake and the patient would die. The surgeon is not heartless. The surgeon is controlled. That is the core of a surgeon's heart. You see everything. You understand everything, but your feelings do not run the room. You are not numb. You are disciplined. Most people have never been taught this difference. They think there are only two options: feel everything or be a monster. That is how empaths get destroyed. They confuse sensitivity with strength, and then wonder why they are exhausted, bitter, and easy to use. Psychologists draw a hard line between two types of empathy. Paul Bloom calls them emotional empathy and cognitive empathy. Emotional empathy is hot. You feel with the person. Their sadness drags your mood down. Their panic tightens your own chest. Their shame makes you replay your own old failures. This is what most people mean when they say they are empathic. It feels virtuous, but it is easy to hijack. Cognitive empathy is cold. You understand how someone feels, what they think, what they fear, and what they want, but you do not drown in it. You read their emotional weather like a forecast, not like a storm ripping your own roof off. You stay separate. You are not heartless. You are choosing distance so you can stay useful. Neuroscience backs this split. Tanya Singer and other researchers have shown that effective emotional empathy and cognitive perspective-taking empathy run on partly different brain systems. When you share someone else's pain too strongly, regions involved in pain processing and distress light up. Your stress system responds as if you are under attack. If you stay in that state, your body treats empathy as a non-stop emergency. That is what leads to empathic distress, the state where you are no longer focused on helping the other person at all. You are just trying to stop your own internal pain. You shut down, snap, numb out, or escape. You call yourself kind, but your nervous system is in survival mode. People who last in high-pressure, high-suffering fields do not rely on hot empathy. Surgeons, paramedics, crisis negotiators, elite soldiers, air traffic controllers, they all share something. They cool their emotions on purpose. They do not sit in operations thinking, "This is so sad, this is so unfair, this hurts me so much." They think, "Where is the bleed? What is the next step? What gives this person the highest chance of living?" Their empathy is about information, not shared pain. They still care. They just refuse to let their care turn into chaos. That is why they can walk into hell and still walk out clear. Now apply that to your own life. In relationships, at work, in family drama, you are constantly being pulled into other people's storms. A partner cries and rages. A parent guilt trips. A friend dumps crisis after crisis on you. Hot empathy means you absorb it all like a sponge. Their mood becomes your mood. Their fear becomes your tension. Their sadness becomes your heaviness. You feel like a good person, but you slowly lose your own center. You say yes when you mean no. You stay when you should leave. You agree when you should confront. Your life starts to run on their emotions, not your decisions. Ask a hard question. Who gains from you staying in hot empathy? Manipulative bosses who need you to keep overworking. Partners who never want consequences. Family members who need someone to carry the emotional weight they refuse to touch. Even whole systems, like certain workplaces and service industries, run on burning out the most empathic people. You are told to care more, give more, feel more. No one teaches you how to care colder, give cleaner, or feel less during the storm. Because the moment you cool down, you stop being easy to use. The surgeon metaphor is not about being clinical and dead inside. It is about being accurate, focused, and cold in the moment that counts. If a surgeon broke down crying over every cut, that would not be compassion. That would be negligence. In the same way, letting your nervous system get hijacked by every emotional wave around you is not kindness, it is self-harm dressed up as virtue. A surgeon's heart says, "I will help, but I will not bleed for free. I will see your pain, but I will not fuse with it. I will understand you deeply, but my decisions will be based on clarity, not emotional pressure." Here is the dark promise most people never hear out loud. If you learn to cool your empathy, you gain an unfair advantage. In crisis, you will think clearly while others freeze. In conflict, you will read reactions precisely while others get triggered. In manipulation-heavy relationships, you will spot the hooks in someone's tears, anger, or helplessness instead of falling for them every time. It is what surgeons, interrogators, top negotiators, and high-level operators have been trained to do quietly for years. Their world demands it. So does yours. If you want power, longevity, and clean decisions, you cannot afford to keep feeling everything as if it belongs to you. You are allowed to build a surgeon's heart, precise, steady, and almost frighteningly calm, not because you do not care, but because you finally do. Who have survived the first incision? Most people cannot handle the reality that their empathy is a liability. You will become the calm point in chaotic rooms. People will call you strong, mysterious, or sometimes cold. They will not realize that what you really learned was to stop letting their unresolved emotions drive your nervous system. This shift will feel strange at first. If your whole identity has been built on being the empathic one, the soft heart, the emotional sponge, turning down the heat feels like betrayal. It is not. It is a correction. You are still here. That means you are ready for the full procedure. Signal your intent to complete the transformation. Subscribe now. Let's go deeper. Chapter 2: The Lifeguard Law. Lifeguards are trained to do something that most empaths never learn. When a panicked person is drowning, you do not swim up and hug them. You keep distance. You stay behind them. You use leverage, not emotion. Because a drowning mind will climb, claw, and push down the very person trying to help, not out of evil, but out of blind fear. If the lifeguard forgets this and lets pity control the body, they both vanish under the water. That is the lifeguard law. If you merge with a drowning person, you both die. Distance is not cruelty. Distance is the condition for rescue. The same law runs through emotional life, but almost no one spells it out. Research on empathic distress and compassion fatigue in nurses, doctors, and therapists shows a clear pattern. The more someone absorbs the emotional pain of others into their own body, the faster they burn out. High emotional contagion, where you automatically catch other people's emotions, predicts exhaustion, sleep problems, and even leaving the profession early. The body cannot handle being in permanent crisis mode. Your stress hormones, immune system, and brain circuits are not built for daily emotional drowning. Psychologist Elaine Hatfield and others have studied emotional contagion, the way moods spread between people almost like a virus. Without trying, your brain mirrors the expressions, tone, and posture of the person in front of you. Mirror systems and other neural circuits pick up sadness, anger, fear, and tension. If you are sensitive and untrained, this mirroring runs wild. Someone walks into the room anxious, and your stomach tightens. Someone sulks, and your energy drops. Someone rages, and your own chest heats up. You call it empathy, but often, it is just raw contagion with no boundaries. Now look at how this plays out in normal life. In families, the person with the softest heart usually becomes the emotional lifeguard. When someone melts down, they rush in head first. They listen for hours, take sides, smooth conflicts, explain everyone to everyone. They cannot stand to see anyone upset, so they jump in and take responsibility for everybody's mood. Over time, they do not just help the drowning person, they start drowning with them. Their sleep, work, and health collapse under the constant pull of other people's storms. The family keeps functioning. They pay the cost. The same happens in romantic relationships. A partner cries after every argument, threatens to leave, talks about how no one ever understands them. Hot empathy pushes you to soothe, fix, and comfort instantly, even when this person keeps repeating the same damaging behavior. You merge with their pain, so you cannot hold a line. You forget the pattern and focus only on how bad they feel right now. You hug the drowning person, and they grab your neck. Your life, your goals, and your mental health start to disappear under their emotional weight. Friendships can run on this too. You become the person others call at 2 a.m. with drama, breakups, money crises, family fights. They talk, you listen. They feel lighter, you feel heavier. At first it feels noble. Later it feels like you are carrying 10 lives and dropping your own. You might even notice resentment building, but then you feel guilty for that too. Hot empathy makes you feel responsible for their comfort, so you keep jumping into the water, even as your lungs burn. Here is the hard truth. Drowning people grab. They do not think about your safety. They think about air. Emotionally drowning people do the same. They reach for attention, validation, money, time, sympathy, whatever feels like oxygen in that moment. They are not calmly asking, "Am I being fair?" Their nervous system is screaming, "Survive." If you rely on raw empathy, you will keep giving until there is nothing left to give. You will not just fail to save them, you will go under with them. Emotional distance is not cold, it is strategy. The lifeguard still cares about the drowning person more than anyone on the shore. That is exactly why they refuse to let panic control their own body. They keep the rope in their hand. In your life, that rope is your clarity, your boundaries, your long-term view. Distance means you can say, "I see you are in pain. I am not climbing into the same hole, but I will throw you what I can without tearing my life apart." It means you help in ways that do not destroy your health, your money, your time, or your sanity. When you stay outside the water mentally, you can assess the scene instead of feeling it as your own crisis. You can see when someone is in real need versus when they are replaying the same self-made disaster for the 10th time. You can decide how much help is wise and at what cost. You can spot when your help is actually keeping them weak by protecting them from natural consequences they need to face. You can stop playing the hero who secretly resents everyone and start playing the adult who knows that saving yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. The world will not reward you for following the lifeguard law. People who are used to you drowning with them will call you distant, cold, selfish, or changed. That is because their old survival system no longer works on you. Their emotions used to be a weapon. Now they are just information. You still care that they are in the water. You just refuse to let them drag you under. That is the moment your power returns, when you hold the rope, stay on solid ground, and accept that you are allowed to live even if someone else refuses to learn how to swim. Chapter 3. The Glass Wall Technique. To build a surgeon's heart, you need a mental device that lets you stay close to people without letting their emotions soak into you. That is where the glass wall comes in. Imagine you are in the same room with someone who is raging, crying, or spiraling. You see every detail. You hear every word. You notice the tension in their jaw, the tremor in their voice, the speed of their breathing. But between their body and your body, there is a clear, solid glass wall. Their emotional water hits that wall and slides down. It does not reach your nervous system. You understand them, but you do not merge with them. This is not fantasy. It lines up with how the brain can manage emotion. There is a constant tug of war between the limbic system, which reacts fast and emotional, and the prefrontal cortex, which thinks slow and strategic. When hot empathy takes over, your limbic system fires hard. Mirror circuits catch their fear, sadness, or anger, and your body responds as if it is your own. But studies on reappraisal and psychological distancing show that when you step back mentally, label what is happening, and shift to an observer stance, the prefrontal cortex turns on more. The amygdala, a key alarm center, calms down. Emotional intensity drops. Here is how to use the glass wall in real time. You are in a conversation and feel that familiar pull in your chest or stomach. Before it spirals, you tell yourself, "I am moving behind the glass." You imagine a clear barrier between you and them. Not a wall of stone, not rejection, just glass. You can see them perfectly. Then you switch how you use language in your head. Instead of thinking, "I feel their anxiety," you think, "They are anxious." Instead of, "I am getting overwhelmed," you think, "Their system is overwhelmed." That simple shift to third-person style thinking is a form of what researchers call self-distancing. It slices the fusion between you and the other person. As you do this, pay attention to your own body like a scientist. Notice your jaw, shoulders, throat, stomach. If you sense tension, do not tell a story about it. Just adjust your posture, slow your breathing, and keep your eyes calm. The goal is not to go blank. The goal is to stay in observation mode. You are not the child caught in the middle of the fight anymore. You are the surgeon over the operating table, watching, measuring, deciding. Their feelings are data. Data is valuable, but it is not a command. Research on cognitive reprisal supports this approach. When people are asked to reframe a situation, like seeing an angry person as stressed instead of evil, or a crying person as overwhelmed instead of broken, their emotional response drops in intensity. The brain shifts from pure reaction to interpretation. Self-distancing studies also show that when someone recalls a painful event and describes it as if watching from outside, they feel less flooded and think more clearly. You are applying the same skill in live interaction. You are choosing the observer seat. Try this in everyday scenes. During a guilt trip from a parent, instead of falling into old roles, you go behind the glass wall. You watch their eyes, tone, and phrases. You label. They are afraid of losing control. They are using guilt as a tool. You feel your own urge to defend or explain, and you do not feed it. You keep your voice neutral and your answers short. Their emotional water hits the glass. It does not fill your lungs. When a partner has a meltdown, you let the glass wall drop into place. You tell yourself, they are in a heightened emotional state. This will pass. You do not need to match it. You listen. You might reflect what you hear, but you do not spiral with them. If they get louder, you get calmer. Your heart might still race at first, especially if you have old trauma around anger or rejection, but with practice, the body learns a new pattern. Chaos outside, calm inside. At work, when a coworker brings you their crisis, you do the same. You notice their agitation, but instead of catching it, you treat it like reading a report. You label the emotion, then move quickly to questions about facts, options, and next steps. You refuse to become the emotional sponge of the office. People will still come to you because you are steady, but you will not leave those talks feeling wiped out and resentful. The glass wall does not mean you never feel with people. It means you choose when and how deeply. In normal moments, with safe people, you can let the wall drop. You can join someone in their joy or sadness fully. But in conflict, crisis, or manipulation, you put up the glass first, then decide how much to let through. Over time, this becomes automatic. Your prefrontal cortex starts stepping in faster, calming the amygdala before it hijacks you. You become the person who sees everything, while feeling only what is useful. Chapter 4. From how do they feel to what do they need. Hot empathy asks, how do they feel, over and over. It zooms in on the emotion and stays there. They feel hurt. They feel scared. They feel rejected. Your brain locks onto that pain and starts trying to soothe it, often at any cost. You rush to fix their mood, even if it means lying to yourself, breaking your own boundaries, or staying stuck in a bad situation. You forget to ask if this is wise, fair, or sustainable. You just want the feeling in the room to calm down. Cold empathy runs on a different question. What do they need to stabilize or move forward? That question shifts your mind from pure emotion to function. You still recognize their feelings, but you connect those feelings to needs and those needs to actions. This sounds simple, but it draws on what psychologists call problem-focused coping. Research shows that people who face stress by asking, what can be changed, and then taking action, tend to burn out less than those who only ruminate on how bad things feel. Emotion-focused coping has its place, but when it becomes the only tool, it traps you in endless processing without progress. Think about how experienced clinicians and crisis negotiators act. They do not sit inside the other person's panic. They map it. They think in terms of states and levers. This person feels cornered, so they need a sense of choice. This person feels unseen, so they need validation. This person feels unsafe, so they need clear limits and reassurances. The focus is always, what is the next stable step that lowers the emotional temperature without giving up control? They are using cognitive empathy, not as a way to suffer with the person, but as a way to guide them. You can copy this frame inside your own head. In a heated moment, instead of drowning in, this is so painful, you switch to, they are in X state. What does that state need? For example, they are in panic. They need fewer decisions and more structure. They are in shame. They need some dignity and a path to repair. They are in rage. They need to feel heard just enough to come down. And then clear limits. By shifting to needs, you stop reacting to the noise and start responding to the system underneath. This shift also exposes leverage. Needs are where influence lives. If you know that someone is desperate for approval, you know how they can be pushed, but you also know how to pull back so you do not feed a bottomless hole. If you see that a partner's constant anger hides a need for control, you recognize that endless soothing will never fix it. You either enforce boundaries or leave. When you think in needs, patterns become obvious. You stop getting hypnotized by tears, tone, or drama, and start asking, what does this person repeatedly extract from others when they feel this way? There is a dark edge to this. The same insight that lets you help someone more effectively also lets you manipulate them if you choose. If you know someone needs to feel special, you can flatter them to get what you want. If you know someone is terrified of abandonment, you can threaten distance to make them comply. That is why this knowledge is rarely taught clearly. It hands you power. The line between help and control lies in your intention, and in whether you allow the other person to remain fully responsible for their choices. In daily life, training this question shift looks simple. When a friend vents, your old habit might be, they feel awful. I need to match that, agree with everything, and carry it. The new habit is, they are overwhelmed. What do they actually need? Maybe they need one concrete option. Maybe they need a reality check. Maybe they just need to be heard for 10 minutes, not 2 hours. When a family member guilt trips you, instead of, they feel hurt, I have to fix their feelings, you think. They feel rejected, they need to feel important. Do I want to feed that need here, or is it healthier to hold my line and let them sit with discomfort? In conflict with a partner, instead of centering their feelings as the only truth, you treat them as data. They feel dismissed. They might need clarity, structure, or a genuine apology. But you also have needs. You might need respect, honesty, or space. The question then expands. Given both sets of needs, what is the next step that does not destroy me? You stop letting your empathy erase you. This internal pivot turns you from an emotional sponge into an analyst. You still care, maybe more than before, but your care is no longer blind. It has direction. You are not asking, How do I stop them from feeling bad at any cost? You are asking, what would actually move this situation toward stability, even if that means short-term discomfort, consequences, or hard truth? That is what surgeons do. They do not ask, how do I avoid hurting the patient right now? They ask, what cut needs to be made for this person to live? Chapter 5. How manipulators exploit your hot empathy. Predators look for certain traits, not just in the wild, but in social life. Emotional manipulators scan rooms for people with high emotional empathy and weak boundaries. They test who apologizes too fast, who feels guilty too easily, who cannot stand to see someone upset. To them, your hot empathy is not a virtue, it is a handle. Once they know where to pull, they can move you. Research on narcissistic traits and borderline traits in relationships shows a familiar pattern. At first, they idealize. You are the only one who understands them. You are so caring. No one else has ever been this safe. Your empathy gets flattered and hooked. You start to feel responsible for giving them what the whole world supposedly denied them. Then the flip happens. Devaluation. Suddenly, you are not enough. You are selfish, cold, distant, failing them. They rage, sulk, withdraw, or collapse. Your hot empathy kicks in. You rush to fix their feelings, trying to get back to that early glow. Because you feel their pain so strongly, you keep excusing their patterns. Every outburst feels like a fresh crisis, not a repeat of the same script. You stay focused on the current tear, the current apology, the current promise, instead of tracking long-term behavior. Emotional manipulators rely on this. They weaponize your focus on feelings to distract you from facts. How often do they actually change? How consistent are they over months, not hours? How much damage do they cause, no matter how sad they look each time? Hot empathy blinds you. When they cry and tell another story about their terrible childhood, you feel their inner child and forget that their adult self just smashed your boundaries again. When they talk about how scared they are of losing you, you feel their fear and ignore the way they keep threatening to leave unless you obey. Your nervous system fuses with theirs, so you cannot stand their pain enough to let them face consequences. Over time, you become trained. Their negative emotion equals your emergency. Cold empathy breaks this spell. You still see their hurt, but you add layers. You ask, what do they consistently do when they hurt? How do they treat people over time? What are the incentives here? You shift from, they are in pain, I must as usual, to, they are in pain, but pain does not erase patterns. You stop letting your heart override your memory. You treat their feelings as a variable, not as the entire equation. Starving a manipulator does not start with dramatic speeches. It starts with the glass wall and small behavioral shifts. When they launch into an emotional attack or collapse, you put up the glass wall internally. You watch with calm eyes. You let their words be sounds, not knives. Inside you say, this is their state, not my command. Then you change your output. Your tone stays neutral. You do not rush to defend yourself or over-explain. You let silence work. You slow your replies, both in conversation and over text. When they guilt-trip you, instead of immediately justifying, you give short, clear responses. That does not work for me. I understand you feel hurt. I am still not doing that. You do not argue about their feelings. You do not try to prove that you are a good person. You focus on behavior. You tell them what you will and will not do. You do not explain your every boundary like you are in a courtroom. You already know that no amount of explaining has ever been enough. Most manipulators hate clear conditions, because conditions remove their power to move you purely through emotion. So you bring in conditions. If you continue to shout, I will leave the room. If you call me names, this conversation ends. If you want my help next time, do not lie to me this time. Then you follow through. No threats, no drama, just consistent action. Over time, this starves the pattern. Their old moves stop working on you. They will either escalate for a while or move on to an easier target. Your job is not to fix them. Your job is to stop feeding the system that drains you. What they do with their own pain is their responsibility. When you stay in hot empathy, you act like their unpaid therapist, parent, and emotional filter. When you move to cold empathy, you see their wounds clearly, but you refuse to be their permanent shield from reality. You are allowed to love someone and still say, "Your pain does not give you the right to hurt me endlessly." The moment you stop drowning in their feelings, you will notice something else. Your own needs and limits will come back into focus. You will feel less guilty for noticing them. Manipulators call that selfishness. It is not. It is you stepping out of the role of prey. When their control stops working, they will throw words at you. Cold, changed, uncaring. You can let those words hit the glass wall and slide down. You know the truth. You are not colder toward humanity. You are colder toward control. Chapter 6. Training the Surgeon's Heart. A surgeon's heart is not magic. It is trained. The same way exposure therapy trains someone to face fear without collapsing, and emotion regulation trains people to handle feelings without acting on every impulse. You can train your empathy. You are not trying to become a rock. You are trying to become a switch, on when it is safe and chosen, off, or at least dimmed, when it is dangerous or draining. Start with micro-distancing during normal conversations. Pick small, low-stakes moments. Someone complains about a minor problem. Instead of leaning all the way in, you practice sitting back a little, both physically and mentally. You listen, but you also notice your own breathing, your posture, and your internal commentary. You let a fraction of silence exist between their emotion and your response. That pause is training your prefrontal cortex to step in before your old rescuing instinct fires. Over time, that pause becomes available in high-stakes moments too. Next, practice labeling emotions in the third person. This comes from research on mindfulness and decentering. When you notice yourself getting sucked into someone else's state, silently name it as if you were describing a scene. They are anxious. They are angry. They are ashamed. If your own body reacts, you do the same internally. My body is tense. My chest is tight. You are not saying, "I am destroyed." You are saying, "This system is having a reaction." That small shift reminds your brain that you are more than the feeling of the moment. Another drill is delayed emotional processing. After leaving a heavy situation, your old habit might be to replay it for hours, feeling everything again. Instead, you set a time boundary. You tell yourself, "I will not process this right now. I will come back to it at, for example, 8 p.m. tonight, for 15 minutes. Until then, whenever your mind starts spiraling, you gently redirect. Not now, later." Then, at the chosen time, you sit down and allow yourself to think it through, or journal it out. This trains your brain to learn that emotions are not dictators. They are data that can be scheduled. Mindfulness and decentering practices support all of this. Studies show that people who practice noticing their thoughts and feelings without instantly reacting to them are less likely to burn out in caregiving roles. You do not need long meditations to benefit. You can simply sit for 5 minutes and watch your thoughts like traffic, letting them pass without chasing each car. Or you can pay attention to your breath while standing in line, noticing how your mind jumps to other people's moods and gently returning to your own body. You are building the muscle of not fusing with every stimulus. The final layer is the on and off switch. You decide which people and which moments deserve your hot empathy. With a safe partner, a child, or a close friend who treats you with respect, you may allow yourself to fully feel with them in calm moments or honest sharing. That is when the wall can drop. But you make a rule. In conflict, crisis, or any interaction where control, guilt, or chaos enter, you flip to cold empathy. You observe, assess needs, set boundaries, and refuse to drown. This might scare you at first. You may worry that if you turn empathy off sometimes, you will never get it back. The truth is usually the opposite. When you stop pouring empathy into black holes and power games, you have more of it available for people who deserve it. Your heart does not dry up. It stops bleeding out. You will likely notice that your body feels lighter, your mind clearer, your sleep deeper. You will do less for others, but what you do will be cleaner and more effective. The world benefits from you staying over-involved, over-feeling, and over-giving. That version of you is easy to guilt, easy to control, and easy to drain. The trained version of you, with a surgeon's heart, is harder to use. You will be called cold by those who can no longer move you with their storms. Let them speak. Under that label, your heart is not dead, it is disciplined. You still care, but you decide when, how, and how much. In a world built on emotional chaos and manipulation, disciplined hearts are rare. They make fewer friends, but they lose far less blood. You have now installed the surgeon's heart. Internally, your pulse is flat. You are immune to their pain. But externally, you are still a target. Predators do not stop hunting just because you stopped bleeding. They will keep scanning you until they find a button to push. To win, you must not just hide your vulnerabilities, you must fake them. In cyber warfare, this is called a honeypot. You leave a decoy file for the hacker to steal. They think they have you, but really, you have them. In the next briefing, I will teach you how to engineer decoy emotions, fake weaknesses that trap manipulators before they can touch your real mind. Click the video. It is time to set the trap.